Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BeTechly and the Microsoft 365 Community Conference scheduled preview series. We're just about 2 weeks away from the conference, and the full conference schedule is officially live. So now's the perfect time to explore sessions, plan your days, and get excited for what's ahead. Over the next 5 business days, we'll walk you through this year's career shaping pillar topics, offering a preview of the content, the experiences, and the tips to help you make the most out of your time in Orlando. Today, we're turning our focus to one of the core themes of this year's conference: adoption and change management, exploring how organizations move from rollout to real usage, turning Microsoft 365 and Copilot capabilities into sustainable everyday work habits that help people succeed. Adoption and change management are central to modern work conversations today, especially as organizations navigate change fatigue and AI transformation. The focus is on, reducing friction, building predictable practices, and enabling people to confidently adopt new tools so value extends well beyond initial launch. At this year's conference, Adoption and Change Management features 36 sessions, focuses on adoption and change and value realization. Well, to start, we're going to show you how to locate these sessions, apply filters, and begin planning your conference experience right away. So, first, we're going to head to nextgen365events.com, and we're going to share screen. There you go. All right. So once you're on the nextgen365events.com page, from the tab navigation, you have to select sessions. And once you're on the session page, you'll see the options to refine your results. You will have the ability to filter sessions in several ways, like by type, by level, industry, focus, speaker, or topic, to quickly find out what's most relevant to you. For now, I'm going to choose the topic. I'm going to use that filter. Then we'll select adoption and change management. As you'll notice, there's no extra button clicks. So once you select the topic, the sessions are automatically filtered for you. You can scroll through here and you'll see just how much content is available for this topic at this year's show. Now, if you click in any individual session, you'll be able to see the date, time, and full session details, which makes it easier for you to decide what you want to attend. So in addition to the breakout sessions, the conference also offers a hands-on workshop, and these sessions go deeper, giving you dedicated time to learn, explore, and apply concepts in an interactive focus environment, perfect for turning ideas into actions. Our team is still building additional planning tools, including a downloadable full conference schedule and more dynamic ways to view sessions by day. So those features are coming soon, but for now, everything you need to start planning is available right here. As you build your schedule, keep in mind that sessions are first come, first serve, and each room has limited capacity. Some sessions fill up quickly, so we strongly recommend planning early and having a clear idea of what you'd like to attend. Beyond the session content, this year's conference also features more than 70 exhibitors and sponsors, and they'll be offering hands-on experiences, engaging booth activations, in many cases, their own sessions, and deeper dive opportunities throughout the event. Today, you'll get a preview from one of this year's sponsors, highlighting what they're planning and what attendees can look forward to when you stop by on their booth in the exhibit hall. That being said, I'd like to introduce our sponsor, Crystal Herald.
Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal Harold. I am the general manager for our Microsoft dedicated sales team at HBS, and we will be attending, and I will personally be in the booth. So looking forward to seeing everyone. With that, if you don't mind sharing the screen, please. Before we go ahead and jump in and dive into the actual content that we have available for you today, I did want to walk through just a little bit about who HBS is, so when you stop by, you know who you're talking to. Like I said, my name is Crystal Harold. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've been dedicated to Microsoft specifically for the last 12. I work with our customers and just making sure that we understand what your business needs are and then driving through and aligning the proper technology and what you need to drive adoption in your org. If you move forward, please. So a little bit about HBS. So we are based out of and headquartered out of Wisconsin. We are a national services integrator. So what that means is we provide services and solutions aligned to the Microsoft technology for all of our customers. We have over 750 team members. And with that, we have 400 engineers that are certified in the Microsoft ecosystem. With that being said, our core capabilities, if you see along the left, we do cover the entire Microsoft stack. I know we're focused in specifically on the digital workspace and productivity today, but the way that we go ahead and we drive through that with our customers to help them receive their outcomes is by doing it through either managed services capabilities or professional services. We have all of the Microsoft designations and badges. So what that truly means for you is that we have the ability to unlock advanced support capabilities for you, either through our direct team that we have on staff or also through the Microsoft relationship. And what it also means is that we're part of multiple programs that allow us to unlock a lot of funding opportunities for you to help embrace a lot of the technologies in the Microsoft space. And like I was talking about, our HBS team, we have a dedicated team that's aligned to the Microsoft ecosystem. As you can see, we're covered across the entire group, and look forward to meeting you at the booth. And I will turn it over to Kelly.
Hi, good everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Kelly Grosskreitz. I am a colleague of Crystal's. I work here at Heartland Business Systems, or HBS, leading our modern work as well as our data and AI practices. This morning, what I'd like to do is walk through Copilot. Obviously, all of you that are attending the conference know what Copilot is, but it never hurts to kind of reground ourselves on where you can find Copilot. I find that anytime I'm talking to someone who says, I want to use Copilot, they often kind of narrow in and are thinking Microsoft 365, which is fantastic, right? That's near and dear to my heart. That's my first love, the productivity suite. But we shouldn't forget that Copilot is also embedded into the Power Platform, into our Copilot Studio, our agents in our GitHub environments, as well as in our structured data in Microsoft Fabric, Power BI, all of those different areas. What I've kind of centered myself around is Copilot is a brand. Copilot's the brand from Microsoft that we assign to AI. And that helps anytime I find myself kind of flirting with a challenging conversation where someone says, but Copilot should be able to do that. Simply taking a step back and going, where are you using Copilot? What are you looking for it to engage in? You might be surprised if someone says, well, OneLake, that's where I'm looking at Copilot. Okay, well then that's different than me looking at Copilot in, let's say, the Teams environment. For our purposes today, we're going to hone in on that Microsoft productivity stack. From a Copilot overview, we also have a number of different Copilots in this space. As we all should be aware of, Copilot Chat is coming on strong from Microsoft, doing a lot more these days and allowing us to upload documents to interact with Copilot in a free or an unlicensed capacity. Some really, really cool stuff that we'll touch on lightly in today's session. Then there is kind of the OG Copilot for M365, which is our paid license. That's going to be grounded in your graph data. Everything that you have access to, your Copilot license will also have access to. This also includes our agent usage. And then speaking of agents, we have Copilot agents. This is where we can designate what that information is grounded in, what data it's going to point at. When I think about agents, think about this is where we're going to we're going to execute tasks or automate processes. While Copilot for M365 is a great assistant in terms of content creation, when I look at agents, I'm actually executing tasks that a human would not have to do those clicks if we're leveraging that agent. Before we get into change management and adoption, I would be remiss in not talking about the foundational considerations. Once upon a time, being about a year and a half to 2 years ago, Copilot arrived on the scene. We were licensed for it, and I was regularly asked by our clients, where do I find the Copilot Admin Center? And it was a little bit of an awkward conversation because there wasn't one for a period of time. There was a report that you could download. It was kind of embedded in the Viva Insights area, but really that was about all that we had. Times have changed. We now have a Copilot Admin Center, and we have an area for agents as well. If you haven't taken a stop back there, take a look at it. As you can see in the screenshot, there's a lot of different things that we now have insight to that we didn't used to. And we know from Microsoft that we're getting new settings on a monthly basis to match really the speed of technical implementation from Microsoft. So that's step one, check out the admin center. Step two, or maybe it's 1.5, is focusing on the foundation. For the purposes of my licensed M365 Copilot, my foundation is going to be things like Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrive, OneNote, lists, forms, and Planner. And the thing that we are consistently seeing the need to reinforce is that these key apps integrate with Copilot. Great, that's ads advertised. Why that's important is because everything that you have in those apps is going to be surfaced with Copilot if that license has access to it, or that user who is engaging with Copilot has access to it. I'll give you an example. In our organization, we do annual awards across our organization. We call them Pride Awards. I could leverage Copilot and say, hey, Copilot, who were the Pride Award winners in 2023? If I give it that prompt, I'm going to get accurate results. But if I just say, who are the Pride winners at HBS, it's going to be able to curate and cull through all of the multiple years of awards and forms that we have used for nominations, and it's going to give me a lot of content, more than I'm really looking for. So the reason that's relevant to your foundation is if we clean up that information, if we kind of trim that down, we're going to get better, more accurate results. That also helps us control what users discover. Far too many times we have people saying, well, we have the employee handbook from 2020 and then 2021 and 2022. Well, Copilot has access to all of those different versions, even if they're not searchable or they're not present on our landing page, that's still discoverable and can confuse our searchers or our users if they're just trying to find out what is the dress code in 2026. All of that cleanup will ultimately enhance our user experience. One of the things as we think about change management and adoption, while Copilot is new and exciting and engaging and intriguing to people, that won't last forever. So it's critical that our foundation is strong before we unleash too many people, because we have a very limited amount of time where people will give us their attention and their energy around using this new technology. Even though AI is very interesting, it's very fun, time is limited before they go, oh, well, this is just like Bing Chat, and it's not going to be useful to me. That's not what we want for people. So truly, a solid foundation is essential for that Copilot implementation within your organization. Unfortunately, that also means governance. And I know the stigma that relies or that is associated with governance, policy, compliance, risk management, pass. But what we're seeing is the organizations that have been most successful in their Copilot implementation are well ahead of the game on this in terms of outlining what are the guidelines for our unstructured data, the content that lives in OneDrive, in SharePoint. All of that then feeds into Copilot. So spend some time on your governance. Elements of successful governance are going to rely upon your environment structure. So Copilot is going to require that your documents are in OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. I did mention earlier on that in Copilot chat, we now can upload a single document for Copilot to interact with. That is correct. But Copilot natively is going to focus and really be targeted in on the cloud ecosystem. So SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and it is going to heavily rely upon your permission structures. So make sure that you don't have too many users or really any users who have selected that very, very cute and unassuming checkbox that says share with everyone except external users. That is going to be a thing that Copilot will feast on. That will surface a lot of information that may not be inappropriate, but is just noise. As an example, you might have a spreadsheet from 5 years ago about the picnic sign up, maybe 7 years ago, pre-COVID, when we still did picnics, or a potluck sign up. That's not information that Copilot needs to surface. So make sure that you've got that information cleaned up. And then while you're at it, take a look at your naming conventions. That team member handbook or that employee handbook that I mentioned earlier, if the naming convention is team member handbook V10 and then the date following it, that's not terribly helpful. That's kind of how we had to do it in a file share where we couldn't control kind of what got hidden, or in most cases, we just didn't try to. So we just adopted this naming convention. Now what we can do is we can just say team member handbook. We let versioning help us in the background with those old versions. And if we want to hang on to those past years of employee handbooks, let's create an archive folder that is not showing up in search results for us to keep that archival information. So again, a simple content review is going to be super, super helpful because Copilot will surface duplicate files, old posts, announcements, and news articles. If you have a very healthy SharePoint intranet that's got a lot of legacy news articles as an example, that's great, but we may not want Copilot to find it. That's where establishing archives that we exclude from search can be really, really helpful to establishing a healthy Copilot experience right out of the gate. And a great information architecture and content review then feeds into really, really helpful agents. What you see animating on the screen is an IT help agent that we placed on our own intranet so that people can go, how do I reset my password, or how do I change, how do I request a customer site? I can go in and interact with that agent. It can come back, give me the quick instructions, and then cite a reference as well. That's a super powerful agent that is super easy to implement because my information architecture and my content is clean that supports it. So those are just a couple of basic fundamentals that help us lead into Copilot rollout and adoption lessons learned. So Copilot is the new shiny toy from Microsoft. It has fully emerged on the tech scene, and we now have been using this long enough to know where organizations are falling short. The first area is leadership-led rollout. We know that to be most successful, adoption starts with our leaders, not just advocating for it and saying AI is essential to our organization, but being actual hands-on users in their organizations as well. There is simply nothing more powerful than your key stakeholder, your senior leader saying, here's how I use AI, and here are the expectations of how we will use it. That demonstrates they're willing to walk the walk, but also that they understand the capabilities, right? Because there's nothing more detrimental to a rollout than having a spokesperson, a champion who really doesn't understand the product's capabilities. The second thing is protected time to explore. That has never been more important than it is now. When we're adopting AI solutions, we are learning new ways to think, new ways to behave. We're kind of rewriting what we know about computer productivity. That requires time to be curious, to try things, to experiment, and see what works and what doesn't, but also to come back and see what didn't work last month. Does it work today? Because chances are it does. So without that protected time to explore, we're seeing people really stall out on their day 1 use cases or maybe even day 30 use cases. But once that honeymoon passes, if they're not continuously going back and being curious and kind of self-starters, we're really seeing organizations stall out on that adoption. The organizations that are getting it right are investing in team problem solving blocks. You might have seen these called promptathons. We used to call them hackathons when we were, coding things, but ultimately these are short sessions where we align the group around a shared challenge, and then we challenge ourselves to use Copilot to solve that problem. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but that's okay. The power is in the discovery and then the storytelling around it. Share what worked, share what didn't work, share what used to not work and does today, and how you found your way back to it. That culture of storytelling really has never been more powerful than it is today. And then continuous learning. We have a lot of organizations that we work with that invest in training on day 1. They procure licenses, they assign them to their end users, they send them to a Copilot basics session, they might even do an Agent 101, but then they stop. Well, as we all hopefully know, Copilot is evolving every single day. So with only having that single point in time of learning, we're missing kind of the exponential learning opportunities. And then the last thing that we're seeing people evolve into and really struggle with is metrics and use cases. Pairing that data usage, it's nice that we have the admin center that has more robust information with the real life scenarios to understand what value is being delivered. So these are consistent places where we're seeing people and organizations fall short, and there are solutions for how they can get through it. So what's actually working is defining what success looks like. This is really challenging, especially as we're rewiring our brains for what the world of AI looks like. What are we specifically looking for AI to do with this or for us? Can we tie it back to a metric? Is our original metric the right one? That's another interesting question to ask. All of these are helped through storytelling. And the most successful organizations that we see, they do their storytelling by leveraging a Teams channel for employees to share their experiences. And then they have leaders who are courageous enough to share where they have failed. Because you can only share so many wins before it's like, we all know that you're awesome. Knock it off. Stop sharing all of your wins. Tell me about some of your flaws. The real magic in this is sharing, here's what I tried, it didn't work, it didn't work, and then it did. That culture of storytelling is supports the curiosity and the willingness to kind of look foolish or to admit I didn't get it right the first time. The other thing that I'll add in this is the single most powerful and most organic adoption of a tool we've seen, at least in my professional career, is Microsoft Teams. And it happened in March of 2020 and beyond because we experienced a global pandemic. People needed to go home. They needed to figure out how to use Teams in order to maintain their employment and do their jobs efficiently. I hope in my lifetime that I don't have another experience like this, but that was forced implementation. It was forced curiosity, and that tool has thrived. AI is not going to be helped by having that kind of forcible adoption. It's going to rely on things like ongoing training and change management. Again, storytelling, targeted training, general training, as we think about specific use cases. So can I get in front of HR and give them real life experiences that are relevant to the HR function or the finance function or our engineers? All of those are going to be super, super powerful, but the way that we uncover them is by talking to our users and having them share what their challenges are and what the opportunities are, what things have they discovered. And then, yes, training on agents is going to be super helpful. But ultimately, when we talk about end user adoption and change management, we're really at the heart of how do we get people to change, to want to change their behavior to get a new outcome. And the X factor across all of this is your AI champion. So I talked for a bit about having executive sponsorship. AI champions are not always executive sponsors. AI champions are the people in your organization who are using the technology, who are trying new things, in some cases sooner than you are comfortable with them doing so, and bringing you back the feedback. It is not the shadow IT person who's using AI for their own personal gain so that they look like a wizard, but they're not sharing it with anyone else. That's a potential champion, but not an actual champion because they're not yet sharing. It's also not the CEO who says we're going to use AI, but then still has their administrative assistant do their email for them because they don't know how to do that. Those are not your champions. It's the people that will invest the time, be hands on, will beat up the system, and then also be generous with their time to help you understand what they did, work together to fix it so that everyone learns and grows together. So those are a couple of the key things from a change management perspective. This introduction slide, this is what we're seeing a number of organizations have success with. They break their Copilot, their licensed M365 Copilot rollout into 3 phases. The first phase is we start with the admin center. We define an acceptable use policy, and then we call this an AI envisioning workshop where we just walk through what are the challenging parts of your business? What are things that run kind of clunky? We start to ideate on where AI could be effective. In that same time frame, when we talk about the phase 2, this is where we should be doing a security assessment of both our OneDrive and our SharePoint repositories. Here's why. Because people will overshare, not because they're nefarious, but because they're lazy and they're working really hard and they're just trying to go faster. So we should do a scan of those 2 repositories and see what content is over permissioned so that we can adjust that. Here's the problem. The adjusting that means talking to content owners. We could hit a kill switch that says do not share with the rest of the organization, but that will be more disruptive than it is helpful. At the end of that phase, we absolutely should establish a link expiration policy if one doesn't exist today, but we need to get through that discovery of what's over permissioned, have the conversation with the business content owners, and then take technical steps to close that and shrink that window of over permissioning. And then all of that sets us up for phase 3, which is actually our rollout. In that phase 3, that's where we start a Copilot council, which is a fancy way of saying, let's bring together our early adopters and get them talking to each other. We start to build that forum for that culture of storytelling. Overlaid over the top of that will be training. So Copilot training session 1, then let's target in our training and have customize it for what we've learned about your organization in the first session. Then the second one dials in on whatever is important to your organization. And then across all of that are consistent launch communications. From a communication perspective, Copilot and all of our newer technologies are a little bit different. They're a little fun. People are finding creative new ways to do them. Why not do the same with our communication strategy? We might as well be a little unhinged, in my own personal opinion, to catch people's attention. If we are sending the typical memo filled with acronyms and action this day messaging, we're going to lose some people. But if we can inject some fun into it, in literally some color, because Copilot, if you haven't noticed, subtly from Microsoft is very colorful in its logo. We're trying to bring just more humanity, more life into this tool set, and there are subtle ways that Microsoft is doing. So we've talked a bit about the foundation setup, what we're seeing that works well in terms of change management, rollout, and adoption, what doesn't, and what does. Um, and so, what I'll leave you with today is there are a number of kinds of Copilot. That's kind of where we started. Copilot as a brand has a lot of different functionality across the Microsoft suite. We have a booth at the M365 Community Conference that my colleague Crystal Harold will be at. We'll be at HBS booth 816, and we'd love to have a conversation with you about where you're at in your Copilot adoption or licensing as might apply to you.
Yeah, please stop by. So me and my colleague will be there. We're going to have a little bit of fun, as Kelly said, and bringing a little bit of color to our booth. We will be dressed up as pilots one day and as flight attendants another, just kind of partnering with the whole Copilot theme here and everything that we're going to hear a million times while we're at the conference at M365. And I'm so excited to see everyone. So please stop by. I'm happy to chat with you and cover any additional detail that Kelly may have covered today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. And Ella, back to you.
Thank you, ladies. That is such an amazing session and really quite an eye-opening right there. Thank you so much, Kelly and Crystal, for that. Well, we're really looking forward to seeing what you bring to the conference this year. And Crystal, for sure, everyone will be excited to see you on that flight attendant, pilot custom right there. So everyone, as we wrap up this session, a few important reminders. If you registered to the Microsoft 365 Community Conference, keep an eye out for your invite to the conference mobile app, Wova, where you'll be able to build your personal schedule, create meetups, and plan your days in more details. If you haven't registered for the Microsoft 365 Community Conference, you still have time to save $150 on your conference pass by using the code SAVE150. If you're part of the small business or nonprofit, grant applications are still open, so visit us at change3e.com/grants or just scan the QR code on your screen. If you have questions, you can always reach out to the team at info@nextgen365events.com or connect with us on site in Orlando. Our goal is simple: to help you have the best possible experience at the hashtag M365Con26. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and we can't wait to see you in Orlando. Bye.